along with
So
everything
can I
else.
ask you for some wisdom then?
Yeah.
So, and I knew this about you, but within real estate, there's so many different things that you can invest in.
Mm-hmm.
What's your favorite? What's your, not necessarily like a passion, but what have
Mm-hmm.
you seen the most success in and enjoyed the most?
Yeah. So yeah, and it is safe to call it a passion. So I invest for cash flow. So here's my sort of big block, very preliminary, short and sweet real estate advice for pretty much everyone
Okay.
is know whether you're investing for appreciation or cash flow.
Okay.
And I think either one's an actually totally acceptable answer. So investing for appreciation would look like you are in Nashville, you realize it's booming. Here's a good example of a sales center that I bought recently. The owner looked at the city maps and he saw where they were about to plan more sewer lines, and he could tell that the city was expanding in that direction, so he would buy some fields there. And then what do you know, 5 years later, when the city did expand that direction, he would sell them off.
Wow.
But in the meantime, those fields are not cash flowing.
Uh-huh.
It's a complete appreciation play. And then on the other hand, you might have, call it a single family home that you rent out or a multifamily apartment building. And those tend to be, not always, but those tend to be more of a cash flow play. So any real estate that I've actually ever bought, because that's basically my strategy, has been for cash flow. I'm just trying to think now real quick if there's been an exception to that, and I think there was one exception. But generally speaking, I like to invest for cash flow. Now, again, I think either is fine, but here's where people get into trouble with real estate is when they need both to make the deal happen. When you need both appreciation and cash flow to pay the note or whatever to make it work, I think you're really asking for trouble.
Okay.
But if you're aware going in, this is an appreciation play, and if that's the case, then don't plan on the cash flow.
Okay.
Or, hey, this is a cash flow play, and in which case, run your numbers based on that thing cash flowing and assume it never will grow in equity. Just assume that. Now, most likely will, but if you need cash flow and appreciation to make a deal work, you're really asking for trouble.
So in that case, even if it depreciates for a season, you're
Totally
still
fine.
okay, right?
Totally
Wow.
fine. Because someone's in, 1 or 10 or 20 people in that building are paying you their rent, whether that thing's worth 100 grand or 500 grand. They owe their rent. So it really doesn't matter what happens to the equity cycle of that property. The cash flow in theory will stay the same. The other reason that I like the cash flow play is because it is more recession proof. And so when we went through that real estate dip, my properties were worth less, certainly, but my cash flow was the same. And actually what happened was when people weren't buying as many homes, they were renting more. So it almost drove rents up a little bit
yeah.
at the
Demand.
exact same time
Wow.
where housing prices was going down. So yeah, I mean, I'd talk real estate for a long, long time. And I know there's, I'm a very, very small fish in a very, very big pond. I mean, I have friends that are in this to the nth degree that I'm not. But generally speaking, multifamily is what I would prefer to invest in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Multifamily.
The only other thing I would say is commercial can be really great. There's a lot of money to be made in commercial, and the beautiful thing about owning commercial property is you have triple net leases. And so the tenant pays maintenance, insurance, and property taxes, and you just own it. The thing with that is you need to be sure that you can cover vacancies. If you have a 10,000 square foot warehouse, for example, and there's one tenant in there, it's all great while that tenant's in there, but if they move out, it could take you a year or two to fill. Whereas if you have a 10-unit multifamily apartment building, one person moves out, you have 9 other people paying rent. And so just that the multifamily residential model is a pretty, it's a more safe bet.
And as a leasee, I really enjoy when my landlords are giving me good TI, which can be capital intensive as well, right? In commercial real estate, having to pump out some money for improvements.
Yeah, exactly. The only other thing that I would, and I'm happy to get into whatever you want to get into here, but the only other thing I would say on real estate, if someone is interested in getting into residential real estate in particular, I can't stress the value of good property management hard enough. And that was my start with real estate. Was my dad built out a 5-unit, a 10-unit, and another 5-unit with the plans that mom would have that as an income source if he were to die from cancer, because he had cancer. Well, he did pass away, and mom got those multifamily units, but it wasn't making her very much money. So by the time I was 17, 18, I became her property manager, and we started to make
Nice.
a little bit more money. And that's what I could see is that. So there's one example of the difference between a bad property manager and a good one, in the difference of your property making money at all or really much. And second, fast forward from that point, fast forward 5 or 6 years, I'm running the family company. It's growing. I'm still managing my own. I bought those from my mother, and I'm managing them all myself, trying to save some money. Well, running a company and just with everything going on, of course, you're not managing those at the best that you can. So we started a property management company, and I would pay that property management company. It was run by someone else, the fair rate for paying a property manager. And the first year that I paid, I think at the time it was 8% management fee.
Okay.
I paid that property management company 8% management fee to manage those properties. And that year we made more money paying the fee than the year before when I was managing it myself and not paying the fee.
Wow.
Because it makes all the difference when someone moves out, if you get someone in there 2 weeks later or a month later versus 4 months later. That makes a big difference, obviously, in cash flow. So I'm a big fan of get a good property management company, pay them well, and make them do a good job for you, and be careful about managing it yourself. Some people can, a lot of people can't,
I
and
couldn't.
don't have time.